Now, the first call we have is from a firefighter at 3:37 a.m. local time. The calmness of his voice is remarkable, all things considered.
Yes, ma'am. Just for your 43, the Guadalupe is starting to come up, and Shoemaker is no longer passable at this time.
That's the Guadalupe River rising, and one of the main streets flooded. And from that point on, as the audio shows, problems were growing fast.
Respond to 2029, Highway 39, 2029, Highway 39. It's going to be for a water rescue. House callers, house flooded. We're getting multiple calls off of 39. People are stating their houses are flooding. We're trying to advise them to get to higher area.
Now, the next piece of audio is of what we reported on last night, a firefighter requesting an emergency alert be issued to the community, and the dispatcher not able to make that call.
Is there any way we can send a code red out to our Hunt residents asking them to find higher ground or stay home?
10-4, standby. We have to get that approved with our supervisor.
Well, as we reported last night, it would be 90 minutes from that call to when Kerrville's mayor told the Texas Tribune that he finally received a code red alert. Now, during that time, the Guadalupe River would overflow in a wall of water several stories high at its peak, and the 911 calls would just keep coming.
We received a phone call at our fire station to have a lady, she's frantic. She's at Casa Bonita, 117 Corto Way or Casa Bonita Lodges, and she said her children are on top of one of the cabanas and they're trapped.
Well, the area is home to many summer camps, as you know. This one, boys rode out the worst of it in the rafters of their cabin when water reached the top of their bunks. Camp Mystic for girls, though, was, of course, the hardest hit. This is a new image of some of the evacuation efforts early on. In a moment, we'll be joined by one of the staffers who was there that night and took this photo. But as would become clear, though, 27 campers and staffers, many of the campers as young as 8, tried to get out and didn't make it. And when daylight came, a few hours later, the true dimensions of it all became clear. In addition to all the dead, dozens and dozens of people missing. And tonight, they still are. Upwards of 160 people, in addition to the 120 plus fatalities. And as to that dispatch audio tonight, the man who recorded it and helped install Kerr County's Code Red system spoke with CNN's Aaron Burnett about the timing of the alerts that followed.
So are you saying as early as 3:27 a.m. that things could have played out very differently in terms of alerts and code reds and frankly, just to be blunt, hundreds possibly of lives saved?
Well, it's too late for Hunt. The water's up, and the volunteer fire department guy's been there. He knew it was coming because he's awake and he's sitting in his truck looking at it. But the water's come up, and the wall of water's heading down to Ingram. So you hear some radio traffic in a little bit that's going to warn people that warn to tone out Ingram that they need to start evacuating the RV park downriver. And I fully believe that a really quick action could have, and I'm not going to hindsight it all, but a quick action could have helped people downriver. But at 3:30, once it hit 4:30, it was just too late. The code red would have been ineffective, in my opinion.
Well, for more on the timeline, we're joined by CNN's Shimon Prokupecz, who is in Kerr County. So, Shimon, we know that the National Weather Service sent a flash flood warning just after 1 a.m. early on the morning of July 4th. Have local officials explained if they were monitoring the weather in the hours between when that warning went out and when they started to send alerts out to residents?
No, they've not, Anderson, and that's the key thing in all of this. It wasn't until hours later when you hear from city officials, one of them was running, another one gets woken up, much later than 1 o'clock when the flooding is actually occurring. And I think that is what's so significant about that audio that we just heard, is that everything that audio tells us is that by the time authorities were in the midst of this, they were dealing with this, it was already too late. People were already in danger, and they were surprised by all of this. The people, the community, was because all of this happened in the middle of the night, and we have no information from any of the authorities here on the local level, the county officials, the city officials, that any of them were monitoring the weather at 1 in the morning, at 2 in the morning, at 3 in the morning, when days before the Texas Department of Emergency Management was putting out press releases telling people, beware, this is coming. There could be a concern here. We have no accountability from locals as to what they were doing, how they were preparing, and whether or not they were communicating with state officials who were having these concerns, Andersons. And that is the thing. That is the key now here. What were they doing? How were they preparing? Were they anticipating any of this? Were they in communication with the weather services, any meteorologists, any people down and up the river to see what was going on? And so far, there is nothing here from the officials on that.
I understand you're in a hard-hit area right now that only a few media outlets have been able to get access to before. What are you seeing?
Well, Anderson, it's just shocking. We are lucky enough to sort of tell these stories because this community wants this story told, because this area has been cut off from public access by the Texas Department of Public Safety, the state police here. This is Bumblebee Hill. It's in Ingram. But I would just want to show you here, Anderson, the devastation here. This is, you know, not really that close to the river, but these are all the homes that suffered from the water damage. You see all of the destruction and the garbage and people starting to clean up their homes. People were on the roofs of these homes as the floodwaters were rising, riding out the storm to try and survive. I want to just quickly show you one other thing, Anderson, just to show you the power of this river and what was happening here. Here's how this went. This river that's 39. So it's on the other side of that road. It went over that road, through this creek, up the back way here, all the way into this house, Anderson. And quickly, one more thing I want to show you. This here is the water line. This is the water line into this home. The people were sleeping. There were 8 people in this home, including kids, and they rode out the storm. They were able to get up because of the noise from trees breaking. They realized that the weather had turned, that the water was rising. It was in their home to their waist. They quickly grabbed everyone. There were 8 people in this home, and they survived on this roof. They rode out for hours on the roof. This family called 911, and they were told there was nothing at that point that they could do for them, that they were just to get to the highest point possible. I spoke to this family. They are thankful. They let us into their home. They let us into their property. They are just thankful that they survived. And now they're just trying to rebuild as many in this small community, because no one expected that the waters would rise in such a way. I mean, this house, when they built this house, it was even built higher by them so that they could avoid any potential flooding. And even that didn't work. And that water went across the street into all of those homes. Just, you know, Anderson, just utter devastation here. And it's just so sad to see all this, Anderson, just so sad.
Yeah, I'm glad they were able to get onto the roof in time. Shimon, thank you very much. We learned a bit tonight about another one of the now more than 120 men, women, and children who lost their lives almost a week ago. Sherry Richardson was just a few weeks away from her 65th birthday. She was a grandmother of 5, a mother of 2. She lived in a small cabin near the nonverbal disabled adults and children that she worked with an organization called Hope House. They all got out okay, but she didn't make it. One Hope House staffer called her the heart and soul of the place, one of the kindest people he'd ever met. Sadly, there will be many more reports like hers. CNN's Ed Lavandera has more right now on the search for the missing.
Passing through the gates of the Last Gap Ranch in Center Point, Texas, volunteer firefighter Razor Dobbs takes us to the edge of a sunflower field. The beauty eclipsed by heartbreak.
Yeah, there's been a lot of victims in this area right in here.
And this is a place that's home to you.
This river is this whole community's home. This river is like the backbone. This river is where people that grew up on this river and their kids are growing up on this river.
This is the story of one spot along the Guadalupe River and the monumental task of finding the missing.
This is a pinprick. This is a little bitty one frame of the whole movie of equipment.
Right.
I mean, this operation right here is going for 30 miles plus.
Yeah, all the way back to Camp.
Yeah, and so it is crazy.
Heavy machinery has taken over the banks of the Guadalupe River. Makeshift roads have been carved into the river's edge to haul out mountains of debris.
This whole area right here was a huge debris field. It was full of not only natural debris, but it was full of, remnants of RVs, houses, boats, just names. So which triggers the search and rescue people that, okay, this is a hotbed.
Razor can't say how many bodies have been found along this tiny stretch of the river, but every day since the July 4th flood, he says search teams have uncovered victims here. This spot is about 30 miles downriver from Camp Mystic. The discoveries uncovered here have shocked him. What kind of debris have you guys found down here as well?
Well, we've found signage from Camp Heart of the Hills. That's up there by Camp Mystic. That's 30 miles away.
That's staggering.
That's staggering. That's the power of this river.
This is what the search crews are having to navigate their way through, these massive cypress trees that have been ripped out of the ground. All of this was well underwater here, and there's so much debris even up in the trees. You can see how high the water reached here. It probably reached a little bit higher than that. And crews here, when they see something like that, have to be concerned that there could be someone in that debris pile still high up in a tree. Navigating our way through the riverbed, we came across a group of volunteers trudging through terrain, a group of strangers who've come together to help.
We just all had that one common goal of helping the community and helping fellow Texans.
1 week into this tragedy, and there's an outpouring of gratitude for the volunteers and emergency teams working along the river. As you sit here and you watch this operation, and it's heroic on so many levels, but do you think it's possible that there are some families who are just not going to get their loved ones back?
Right now, I'm not even going to think about that. Right now, my mentality and our mentality, the thing is, we're bringing people home, and that's it.
For 7 days, Razor Dobbs and his fellow Centerpoint volunteer firefighters have worked around the clock. As we navigated the debris field, he seemed frozen for a moment. A few weeks earlier, he enjoyed a picnic in this spot with his wife and friends. Does it hit you pretty hard?
Just still numb. I'm still in work mode, but it's filtering in. My wife came down and from the house and just looked, and she just started crying because not at the destruction of the property. This is going to grow back, but just the horror and the anguish that these families must feel. Number one, the powerlessness they must feel.
And Ed Levendera joins us now. It's extraordinary the work that they are doing. How long can they keep this up?
Oh, they seem where we met Razor Dobbs today, Anderson, was at the Centerpoint Volunteer Fire Station, and Razor told us that the place had taken on 8 feet of water during the flooding, but there today it was taken over by hundreds of volunteers. There were 2 people, they wouldn't tell us their names, but they were coordinating the comings and goings of volunteers, other responders that were trying to come out here to help in the search efforts. This one little fire station is responsible for searching about 7 miles of the Guadalupe River, and it doesn't appear to be any end in sight in terms of the number of people who are willing to come out there and help them. Anderson?
Ed Levendera, thank you again. My next guest, Nancy Clement, was a photographer and a counselor at Camp Mystic. This was her first summer there. She captured these photos of the flooding that night and survived after making it to the roof of the cabin where she and the other staffers stayed for 2 hours until the water receded. Thankfully, she was safely airlifted out. Shortly before airtime, I spoke to Nancy about what she went through. Nancy, when did you first realize something was terribly wrong?
So I woke up at like 1:30 or 2 just to heavy rain. But once it started, once we realized it had started flooding, was around 2:30 or 3. So it really hit me that something was really wrong whenever I was we were on the porch kind of watching the girls evacuate to Rec Hall from their cabins.
We're showing a picture of some of the girls walking through water to a cabin. At what point was that?
That was when they were walking to rec hall, so that was like right around 3, which was right when I realized like it was getting serious.
And at what point did you and the other counselors decide to get onto the roof?
So we went in the cabin because it started getting on the porch. So we went into the cabin and we were just kind of watching it. We were like, okay, well, it might be safer inside, because in fight or flight mode, we were just like, inside might be safer than outside because we weren't sure. So we go inside, we start packing our stuff like onto our beds, just because we were like, well, if it won't get higher than the bed, so anything that was on the floor we just put on the beds. But then it started getting higher and higher. We could see out the window. And so then we were like, okay, then we'll start putting it on the beds because the mattresses will float. And so then we were like, someone said, look out the window, you can see the water level. Like if you looked out the window, you could see like the level of the water, like outside the window, like you could see water down here and then like normal air space up here. And so then
so you could actually see the water level on the window itself.
Yeah. And so whenever everyone looked at the window and saw that, that was when the door broke in half and all the water started rushing in, because we had seen like water trickling through the door, but all of a sudden the door snapped in half and like the water came rushing in. So then we were like, okay, we need to get out of here. So we then go out the other door of the cabin, which is where the water was pushing against it, and it was a pull open door. The screen door was like a push open, but there was like a door and then a screen door. And so we managed to get, that's the door that broke in half, the picture that's showing right now. And so, yeah, so we got the door open. I don't know, it was by the grace of God that we got that door open. And then we went out to the porch because we were like, we have to get out of this cabin before it fills up, because it was about waist deep at this point. So then we went out to the porch and we were like, we kind of dispersed along the porch because there's different like columns and stuff, and we were just holding onto the columns. And then it got to be water up to around like our shoulders, and above that was like the last place we could like get out, like, so it was like shoulders space that we could get out from under the porch, and then like the roof of the porch started. So then we were like, okay, at that point we needed to get out from under the porch because we would have been trapped under there. And so we got onto the roof with like the couple of things we each had. Like we were each trying to keep our phones just because it was the only contact we could have. And then, yeah, so then we got onto the roof. We helped the rest of the people from that cabin onto the roof, which were all staff members. So we're all like college age.
And
girls.
I understand one staffer who was trying to make it on the roof actually got swept away and got caught on a volleyball net.
Yeah. So she was trying to get on the roof. She lost her footing, and then she got swept away and she caught onto the volleyball net. So we take off our shirts and we're trying to like tie them together. And I had a sweatshirt on, so it was like long sleeves, so it had more length to tie together. So we were tying them together, and then we look up after we tie them, and she had swam against the current that she had like got swept away in. She had swam against that and made it back to the roof. We were like, how'd you get back? And she was like, I swam, just help me up. So we went down there and we helped her up onto the roof. And so then we were all just sitting up there for like 2 hours until the rain,
That's amazing. She was able to swim against the current.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I understand you heard girls singing their camp songs at a nearby building while you were on the roof. And it was after that you started praying. How helpful was that in getting through the next few hours?
Yeah, so one girl on the roof, she had suggested, she was like, hey, could we pray? So we started praying. We did like a group prayer where we all just prayed for like a little section of just like, we all took a turn praying. And then we heard the girls in rec hall. They had moved up to the second floor, and we heard them all singing like the songs we would sing on Sundays at assemblies and devotionals, like all the songs that are really just like thanking God or praising God for all these like wonderful things that he's done, and singing just the camp songs, like about how much they love the camp, stuff like that. And so we were like that just warmed our hearts. It was just really beautiful to hear, and it was like a sense of hope, even though at that point the water was still up really high. It was up to like the edge of the roof, and we didn't know what we were gonna do, but we heard them singing, and that was just like a sense of relief, even though there was no relief to see, but there was relief to hear. Were
you aware at that time on the roof just how how bad this had been at the camp, that that other cabins had been swept away?
Mm-mm. No, we had no idea that like there were people missing. We were just hoping for the best. I mean, we had like a kind of like feeling in our hearts like we can't, like there's got to be something that went wrong, because we were like, there's so many girls at that camp and so many girls that like are little and don't know how to swim. We were just really worried for them, but we were just hoping that they had all made it and all been safe. After the water receded, when we decided, we were like, don't make us your priority. Don't help us get down until like you've accounted for all that you can account for.
Well, Nancy, I'm so glad you're okay, and I'm so sorry for what you've been through. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you.